Paul Thomas, Seneca Lake Wine Trail, here with Bruce Murray, owner of Boundary Breaks Vineyard. Bruce, thanks for having us out today.
Love to see you here, Paul. It's great to have you.
Now, if you would please, you're one of the newest wineries I can confidently say in the region, and certainly one of the newer tasting rooms. Tell us about the winery, if you would please, the vineyards, the whole deal.
So I'm from this area, generally upstate New York, and I love Riesling. And about 10 or 12 years ago, as I looked at the future of where I would be when I was 70 or 75, I thought, what better place than in the Finger Lakes growing Riesling grapes and making great Riesling wine. That's what brought me here about 10 years ago.
So literally a specific wine, a specific grape is really your passion.
Absolutely, yes. About 15 years ago, I was at a restaurant. It was a Thai restaurant. I had a great Riesling with a great Thai meal, and I thought, this is perfect. And if you can make Riesling in the Finger Lakes, then there's a future in that.
And the light bulb went off.
A light bulb went off. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's the first I've heard.
That's a true story, too.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And tell me about your tasting room a little bit.
So we started here 10 years ago and just planted vines. We had 120 acres to plant. We started small. We began to harvest fruit in 11. We started having wine made for us by some of the region's best winemakers. We started distributing our wines and then realized people want to know more about you. People want to know about this region. They want to know where the wine comes from. So we said, let's begin planning for a facility here, a tasting room, a warehouse, a production facility, and it opened a year ago.
And that's been working out well for you, I assume.
We are off the beaten path.
Yeah.
And so when people come down here, they may comment,
Well, it's tricky to find you.
it's tricky to find you. Where are the signs? But we think the experience of being close to the lake like we are, outside of the kind of the traffic and the hubbub of 414 and some of the other areas, makes this a kind of unique spot.
And if people want to find you, if they find you, that means they wanted to find you.
Exactly. So we don't see people stumbling in here saying, "Oh, we were just driving by." No, when they get here, it's because they had a reason to come here.
And the vines behind us, to clarify, these are your vines.
These are our vines right here, and we're planting more of them right below that. So the planter that's out there is putting in 14 more acres.
All Riesling.
All Riesling. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And would you have a favorite kind of Riesling that you produce?
So we make 5 different Rieslings, from very, very dry on the dry end to an ice wine, and I think the thing about Riesling that makes it so interesting really is that you can make so many different styles out of it. I don't have a favorite. I think we try to make a great version of the dry style. We try to make a great ice wine. And if we can make a great version of each of these styles, we know we'll find somebody that will like it.
Are you out on the tractor sometimes? Are you in the cellar?
Definitely. I mean, I'm the owner, but what that means is I make the plan, I set the goals, I find the people that are responsible directly for each area, and I make sure we have enough money. And that's really my job. But the first part is, for the first 4 years actually, I worked in the vineyard with our vineyard manager and got to know grape growing from the very beginning. And I think that was actually an incredibly valuable part of this process, because if you don't have good grapes, it's really hard to make great wine.
Well, one could argue impossible.
You could argue impossible.
But
Exactly.
certainly difficult, unarguably.
Great wine starts in the vineyard, definitely.
And when you purchased the property to grow on, I assume you go about the testing. I imagine you did go about all variety of testing processes and consultants who came out and tested the soil.
Not really, actually. I was looking for about 6 months for a piece of property. One of the people whose door I had knocked on called me up and said, "Are you still looking for property? Because there's now one for sale, and it's not likely to last long." So I drove up here, I saw it, I could see it was perfect. It was just perfect, and I, made an offer, and that was that. There's very few places this close to the lake, on this side of the lake, on a slope like this, that come up for sale very often. So I figured whatever was here, we would make it work.
Yep. No, and I'm sure fewer with every year. I'm sure that window narrows further, and there are even fewer of those available.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm very lucky.
Excellent.
I got very lucky with this spot.
Well, the tasting room's beautiful, by the way.
Well, thank you.
It's nice. It's not huge by any stretch of the imagination,
No.
but it's properly sized, beautifully appointed. You've got great staff. You've been fortunate that way, I think.
We're very lucky on that front. I mean, we've tried to say to people, working here means wearing lots of hats. It also means representing our wines the way we feel they should be. So the people who come in kind of get that feeling coming through the door that if it's going to work for them, you know, they have to get to know our wine and get to know us and be able to talk about the wines. Tamika, who's in the tasting room now, was a customer of ours starting about a year ago. She came in and said, "We love your wine." She and Ben, her significant other, just said, "We love these wines." And you know, they were great people. When it came time to look for someone to work in our tasting room, we thought of Tamika and said, who better than someone who already knows our wines and who already likes them?
Yeah.
So it was
So you don't have to train them to try and love your wine.
We don't have to
That's
train
the most
them.
important attribute, I imagine.
She had already been sold.
That's
She'd already been
fantastic.
sold.
All right, what are we missing, Bruce? What have I failed to ask you about?
You know, where can you find our wines? Our wines today are being sold in 25 states.
Oh, and that's a good point. You went about things a little bit differently than a lot of wineries that we work with.
I did, because I was not initially able to run a tasting room. I said, let me find a distributor for our Rieslings in as many states around the U.S. as I can. So the first 3 or 4 years, we just focused on getting our wines into the hands of distributors and getting them to bring it out into the marketplace. So in the last year, our wines have been sold in about 1,000 different locations around the country, whether those are restaurants or wine shops. 25 states, 25 distributors, about 1,000 locations around the country. That's a foothold out there. It's really a foothold, not so much for me.
For all of us.
It's a foothold for Finger Lakes Riesling, definitely. You know, I don't think I can move the needle for Finger Lakes Riesling. I think we can all move that needle, but you gotta get out there and beat the
you
drum.
pried the door open for us now. We can run in behind you, hopefully, and then push the needle where we need it to go.
That's 10 years ago, if you brought a Riesling from the Finger Lakes out to Tennessee, they would say, sorry, not interested. Today I had a guy walk in the door saying, I live in Nashville, I found your wines on the shelves, I wanted to come and see you. Now that's a great story. It's a great story. And it's not, you know, only the timing has been right. And so the people that laid the groundwork, that were the pioneers, actually deserve a lot of the credit. I happen to be in the right place at the right time.
That's fantastic. Great story. Thank you for the time. Viewers can find out more about you and find out maybe where they can acquire your wines around the United States. At BoundaryBreaks.com.
At BoundaryBreaks.com. They can go to our Facebook page as well, Boundary Breaks, and you know, come see us.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for your time, Bruce.
Thanks, Paul.